All right, so hello everyone. Welcome to another edition of Tech Theory Hack Podcast. My name is Sebastian Peltier. I'm running the blog javatechnicalwealth.com. And today we have a wonderful guest who's going to talk about a very interesting subject about software quality. Rafael is here. So, hey, Rafael.
Hello, Sebastian. Thanks for introducing me. And yes, we're going to talk about the mistakes that makes Java developers just face some bugs and have difficulties with them.
Awesome. Just before, we have a few other people here that are interested to hear what you have to say. So first, we have Carlos. Hey, Carlos.
Hi, Sebastian. Hi, Rafael. Hi, guys.
Yeah.
Hello.
Carlos is a Linux container specialist. So, hey again, Carlos. We also have Dorival here. Hey, Dorival. Oh, you're mute, yeah.
Dorival, you are with your microphone muted.
Oh, all right.
Okay, now you can say.
Nice to be here with you guys and learning from you and sharing our knowledge with you. And particularly, I help Java developers to improve their values by learning cloud computing skills. And very nice to be here with you guys.
Cool, awesome. So Dorival is a AWS specialist. So we have like a lot of diversity here. So that's great. So also we have Douglas, which is a learning specialist. Hey, Douglas.
Hey, everyone. It's good to be here this morning.
Awesome. So we're gonna jump right in. So Rafael is gonna help present us his presentation about the top 5 mistakes Java developer makes that cause bugs and stress. Whenever you're ready.
Okay. So thanks, Sebastian, for hosting the presentation and making it possible. So let's start then. So today I'm going to talk about the 5 mistakes Java developers make that cause bugs and stress. So let's start with the 5th mistake. It's lack of tests. So we all know that software without tests is just very harmful. So we have to think in a way to create effective tests. We don't have to use many frameworks to do that. We don't have to have knowledge about different frameworks. We can know just one framework very well, and then we can achieve this goal of covering our code and making sure that our code works properly. So one big problem of not having tests is that we are not able to refactor. We are able to refactor, but we are very afraid of touching the code because we have no idea about what's happening in the code. So if we don't have tests, we touch the code, we change something, and then we don't have anything to rely on to see if it's working or not. So the chances of producing a bad code is much higher when you don't have tests, because once you have unit tests, you produce your code to be cohesive and to not have coupling with other classes. So automatically, when you create unit tests, you make your code being responsible for just one thing. So you create your methods highly specialist. So they want to say the methods you create in your code would be highly specialized. They would be responsible to do one thing very, very well. Because By doing that, your tests would be much more effective and much more easier to create them. So it would make your code cleaner automatically once you have the culture of creating unit tests. So, and also you would have less chances of having bugs, because once you are checking every feature from your code, you're gonna have less chances of encountering a bug. So it's crucial for us to have the culture of unit testing and to know exactly what's happening and to have control in the code, because once you don't have tests, you just change whatever and you might break a lot of things in the code and you don't know. You just lose control. Once you have your code covered, you don't have those risks. So your software become more reliable, and it's very easy to track down a bug. So for example, if your tester opened a bug and you have no idea about what's happening, you simply run the test. And if you created good tests and if you are covering good scenarios, you're probably gonna get the bug and the test will break. And then you're gonna just have to fix this test. So things get much easier once you do that. And it's not enough to have just unit tests. You have to have integration tests. So one tool that is amazing to create those tests is Selenium, for example. If you work in a web application, it's probably you work with web application because nowadays it's just very common. I think 90% of the companies, 90 or 95%, the companies work with web projects. So you can use Selenium. If you're working with an application, you can use Selenium, and then you can create automation tests. So you can put a value on your screen, and then you can send it to the backend and see if everything is working properly. So you have to know the difference about unit tests and integration tests. The difference is basically that unit tests are going to test method by method. And that's it. You won't test different classes. You are not supposed to do it. You are supposed to test just the responsibility of one single method. With integration tests, it's different because you have to test the database as well. So we would have to get the information from the database and check if your query and your converters or whatever you use to get the data from the database, if they are working properly. So you have to mix those tests. Integration tests, you don't have to be so, you don't have to create so many scenarios, just have to create some acceptance tests, some basic tests. And yeah, with integration tests, it gets far easier to track down bugs. So if you have a bug on a specific screen, you run the test and you see what's happening. And also, if you have tests, you can use DevOps. You can use it along with DevOps culture. So you can integrate your software. You can use continuous integration. And once you put your code to the server, once you push your code to the server, commit, or I don't know what you use in your company. I use Git. But if you use SVN, it's when you commit your code to the development branch. Basically, if you have a DevOps culture, Jenkins would compile this, your project, and it would run all the tests. And if something is breaking, you would receive an email and you would have to fix tasks. So with this culture, it's better for you to move your project to production. Things get easier if you do that. So tasks are really highly beneficial for you because you're going to have control about what's happening in your software. And yeah, it's just avoid a lot of stress. Okay, so this was the fifth mistake. Let's go to the fourth. The fourth mistake is not knowing business rules well enough. If you don't know business rules well enough, you can't do anything. You can't produce your solution. You can't implement the code. You can't think of the best code structure, the best code design. You can't produce tests. You can't do anything. So that's why knowing the business rules is so important. You have to know what you are doing. If you are producing a software that you just know some technical things and you have no idea about the business value, you just are creating things in the software and things that you could avoid, useless things that you could avoid to implement. You don't have the necessary knowledge to say, no, that makes no sense. How are we going to put this in the software? So it's highly important to not focus the business knowledge just one person or whatever. Developers have to have this knowledge as well. So you have to participate in the project, not just as a developer with this, I think, this very with this mindset of, oh, I'm gonna just to implement the code. I don't care about the business, just care about my salary. It's not like this. We have to really join the cause and understand what's happening in the project in a whole picture. So try to understand, try to get more information as you can. Try to figure out what's happening with the business. How, if the customers are happy with the software, if customers are using your software, if they are having bugs, if they are having problems, what are their concerns, what they need in the software. So if you have the possibility of asking the users, so asking them what's useful for them, what they need on their daily work, on their daily routine, if you can go there and see how they work every day using the software you produced, you would be able to generate a lot of value because you would know exactly what they need. You wouldn't just be a passive developer, just getting the specifications and producing it. I think if we can go beyond this barrier, we can become really, really, really good developers, and we would be able to generate a great value to the company we are working for. Because I think once we are in the company, we have it's like we are it's like we are the owner of the company. We have to develop and we have to generate as much value as we can, not necessarily just being developer. Of course, developing software developer is just generating the code. A good code is you generate value, but you can generate even more value if you care about those other things. So one solution you can do to solve it is to schedule knowledge transfer session every week. So this person that has a business knowledge would share his knowledge about the business, and you would understand what the fuck is happening in the project. So you would understand what is the business about. So by doing that, you would have much more strength to think by yourself and give ideas and to be able to discuss in a business level what is better to the project. Because in the end, if we think, oh, we're going to produce our software with the best frameworks, with the best programming techniques, I'm gonna nail this project. I'm gonna use the most modern technologies. And if you don't think in the business, if you don't think about the final user, your software is useless. So you have to worry about the business, about the value you are generating. This is crucial. And it's a high differential because it's very difficult to see a developer that really wants to go beyond this mark of just developing code. So I think nowadays software development is much more than just developing code. It's about sharing our knowledge. It's about improving other developer skills. It's about tracking down problems that are happening in the project, mitigate those problems, and generate the most value as you can. Okay, so let's go to the third mistake, not thinking about reusing code. So this problem occurs in a stronger way when we are working short deadlines. Sometimes we are so pressured. Oh, we have to deliver it in the time. We have to produce it. So just do it, just deliver it. I just want the numbers. And when you do that, when we implement the software without thinking about the quality code, we are just developing a code that it's numbers. It won't bring much value. And another problem that causes developer to not think about reusing code, it's about lack of knowledge. We all know that object-oriented programming is a difficult paradigm to master. It's not overnight. Oh, I'm going to study object-oriented programming and I'm going to nail it. It's not like this. We have to always be studying, dedicating, and practicing, and running our own tests, and always doing something to evolve. So one thing that we can do is just try to make a schedule and focus on those core concepts from the Java language, for example. And then once you know those concepts, you would be able to create reusable code. And it's about principles. It's about doing your best work. So once you think about doing developing your best code, you would take more effort. It would be more difficult. But on the other hand, you would be generating a great value to the project. So one action you can take is, first, you can schedule 1 hour a week, and then you can study core concepts, and you can run your own tests. Another thing it would help a lot to make you to produce a better and reusable code would be to apply the culture of code review. So when there are other developers checking your code, you would be more motivated to implement the best you can. So implementing reusable code, it's not easy. You would have to put much more effort when writing your code, but it's much more rewarding when you see your code very easy to understand, like a story. You just see, oh, when you see your code and you see that's so boring to understand what's happening, so easy that it's just boring. Say, oh, there's no mystery here. It's just I'm just reading the code and I can understand everything. It's very rewarding when you see your code beautiful, when you see your code, a code that you can easily understand. So, for example, when you see your code 1 year, after passing 1 year and you see your own code and you can understand everything. So this is very rewarding for you. So go to this path. When you're writing new code, do the best as you can. It will be sometimes agonizing because like Uncle Bob says, to write clean code, sometimes you're going to have to agonize, thinking in the best solution, thinking about the name, thinking about the name of a variable like it was your firstborn child. So sometimes you have to really think, oh, this class, what would be the best name? Should I separate this method? Should I separate this responsibility? Should it be specialized just on this item? So sometimes you have to think a lot about the code structure. And believe me, it's very rewarding. Very rewarding when you see your code very easy to understand, and you're gonna see that the effort you did was worth. And the most you do that, you get better. So don't worry if the first time or the second, when you do that, you're gonna see that it's a lot more of effort because you have to think a lot more about all the possibilities, what would be better, but it's rewarding. So it's better to do that. So the second mistake is about lack of knowledge. So developers write bad code when they don't know the basics. So, for example, when you don't know the basics of the framework you're working with, you would create a really crazy solution for something that should be simple. So I'm gonna give you a really simple example. So if you don't know the Java core possibilities, if you don't know that the set interface store unique values. So I saw in the project already a big if comparison to check if two objects were the same. If they weren't the same, I would add in the list. So the developer didn't know that we had this already in the core Java API. We have the set interface that is mostly responsible for adding unique elements on the list. But once you don't have this knowledge, you have to reinvent the wheel, because if you don't know, you're gonna just do in the way you know. So you would get object per object, and you would create a big if with a lot of field comparisons. Maybe the whole class comparison is just an if with I don't know, 6 fields, 7 fields, and that very ugly thing with a lot of ands and, oh, if name field is equals to other name field and a lot of fields, a lot of comparisons, a lot of very ugly things. This could be avoided just if you knew that the set interface would solve this problem. So this code was refactored with a simple add in the set interface. So this big if could be replaced just with set.add, a new element, and that's it. Of course, you would have to override equals and hashcode method to do that. But it's required the knowledge, the basic knowledge, in order to you to provide, to create the best code as you can. Another example was when I saw a situation with JSF. So with JSF, there is it's a component-based framework for those who never worked with JSF. It's a component-based framework for, it's a MVC framework. So you can develop your HTML and your controller, and then you can bind fields with Java code. And the situation was the following. So in JSF, we have the possibility of creating validation on input texts. But the developer that did that didn't know that this was possible. So what was done? So it was a much more complex solution that it was supposed to be. So the input text had a binding with the backend. So it would be the controller, and there would be a verification in the backend if the field was empty. And then if it was empty, the developer put a modal in this HTML, and it would invoke this modal from the backend. And all this complexity should be avoided with a property in the input text. It's like required equals true. That's it. You can erase all this crazy code that was developed, because frameworks usually have solution for common problems, and validation is a very common problem that we deal with that every day in our daily in our work. So this is another example that of the problems we can have if we don't have the knowledge about the basics of the framework. We don't have to be the ninja programmer, but at least you have to know the basics, the basic tools that we have available to solve those problems. Otherwise, you're gonna have to reinvent the wheel and create those crazy solutions because we didn't have the knowledge in the time. So one solution that we can have with that is to study more, create some schedules, some plans, some studying plans to understand more a framework, and to have the culture of knowledge transfer in your company. So probably there is a developer in your company that knows about this framework at most. So talk to him and say, just schedule once a week or twice a week a session about this framework to explain the most important concepts for you, so that you know, oh, so I remember that he explained this concept. I know that it's possible to solve that in a much easier solution. I don't have to do those crazy stuff. to solve this problem. So simple actions like this would make your project better. It would make your knowledge better. You would be a better programmer, and you would be more prepared for those situations. So I think that's the idea for this problem. And of course, if you want to know deeper the Java language, you can go to our Code4.life gym, and then you can solve some challenges there. It's I can share the links with you later. And you can also follow the Java Challenger series in Java World that I will share in the video later.
I'm just gonna add something here that those challenges, like it's not just for beginner. Even advanced programmer, they gonna learn something.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there's some like language, like the Java language. Like there's some subtleties that like even if you can have like 10-15 years of programming experience, you will learn a few tricks. So yes, you're gonna share that link, but yeah, like I would encourage everybody to go take a look, because that's gonna help you no matter the level you are.
Yes. Yeah, that's it. Thank you, Sebastian. And also, let's go to the first one now. The first one. So maybe you have guessed what's the first big problem that causes bugs and stress. It's the most fearful villain. It's short deadlines. So short deadlines are an unfortunate reality of IT world. And you know that managers and clients sometimes they are not aware that they are putting the software in a short deadline. They just think that they are doing their best work because they are doing it fast, but it's a huge mistake. I can give you a very simple example. If you go to your doctor and if you ask him to perform a surgery in your heart in 10 minutes, and if he accepts to do that, do you think he would be a good professional? He might kill you if he accepts such a thing. So his job as a professional doctor, he has to at least warn you, and he can't accept doing that. Otherwise, he will just kill you. He will just end with your life. So we have to do the same. We have to be professional developers and don't accept those situations. Because we have the knowledge, we know that it will be harmful to the project. But the problem is that sometimes people that are negotiating deadlines with the customer, they don't know about that. They have the mindset that, results and numbers are the best thing. So it's not like this. Results are good, but not numbers. Numbers are just illusion. So if managers think that creating numbers are the best thing in the project, they are completely wrong. And it's our role to convince them, to tell them how to do that, how to implement the software in a high quality. So it's in our career, I just realized more and more that just technical skills not enough. It's far enough. we have to have some soft skills as well. Have to learn how to deal with people, how to deal with managers, how to deal with those stressful situations, how to mentor, how to produce the best value to the project, how to share knowledge, how to make presentations, how to talk in public, how to. So we have to really be a multifunctional programmer if you want to really reach the highest level you can in your career. You have to go beyond of code. Code is very important. You have to develop your best code, but it's beyond that. You have to change the mindset of other developers as well, because it's not only you in the project. You have to convince other developers to produce the best code they can as well. So what you can do to avoid those short deadlines problems? You can show you can produce presentation in PowerPoint, and you can show them how much money they are wasting, how much money they are losing, because they're gonna lose a lot of money. They're gonna have to hire a lot of developers, a lot of nasty bugs that no one have no idea. They just no idea about what's happening in the code because it's so complicated. Everything is coupled, everything is connected, and yeah, anything you change in the code would break everything. So it's just messy. Good developers wouldn't be willing to work in a project like this. You wouldn't have time with your family. Your life would be a mess if you accept short deadlines. So we have a big responsibility as developers to tell them, to make them aware about what is the price you're gonna put at stake if we accept those situations. So just don't be the doctor like the Simpsons doctor that make surgery in animals and make surgery in humans as well, and he doesn't care about anything. He just could kill you. So we have to just make them aware and really make them know the big mistake they are doing, and work on our soft skills to be more convincing and more persuasive. And that's it. If by doing that, everyone wins in the project, the company won't waste money. You won't be stressed. You will have time for your family to spend in your personal things, and to have a good quality, a life quality. So be involved with the whole project. Don't be focused just on coding, because it won't be enough. You have to generate value to the project and find a way to do that. Do your part in the project. Tell them if they are making a mistake.
So I guess we need to learn how to speak the manager's language. So
exactly.
They understand that how a little bit of short-term gain, like to sacrifice the future, that's not a good idea.
Exactly. So we have to go in their world. Don't try to bring managers or business people to technical world, because in technical world we are kings, and they would be nothing in our world. So they don't want to be in that position, in a weak position. They want to be in the same position as you. So don't try to use technical terms that nobody understands. Instead, go in their world, understand their minds, and talk, give your message on their language. Don't try to be, oh, I'm the Mr. Know-it-all. Nobody cares about you. People care about themselves. So try to talk in their language and try to talk about what they care. Mostly it's about money. So tell them how much money they would be wasting if they go in that way. because unfortunately, they think that, oh, clean code and good programming practices is a developer thing. It's a fancy thing that developers want to have fun, but it's not. It's bullshit. It's about getting more money to the company and producing more value, producing more results, and that's it. So if you want to know more about how to avoid bugs, go to nobugsproject.com, and you're gonna get a free ebook there. And thank you for your presence. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Rafael, for the talk. Yeah, that was more than interesting. It was inspiring, actually, because it's not just about like actual coding, as you said. Like it's being a good developer goes beyond just typing keys on the keyboard. Like you interacting with other people. So and that thing, like you kind of read my mind regarding like because like we want there's something usually in within our control. Like we can learn, we can try to improve ourselves to make our code better. But as you mentioned, sometimes there's some constraints that are outside our control, like short deadline, for example, as you said. Like we can be rushed sometimes to do stuff that we don't want to. So yes, that was a pretty good advice to like at some point we need to stand up for ourselves also and be able to say no sometimes.
Exactly. And let me know if you have questions.
So I'll see like if people here have questions.
Oh, I have some question about the
Ooh.
good test quality, about the there is some polemics with some developers, and one of the questions some developer ask is if it's about the TDD or the common approach of unit testing, and some guys don't agree about using TDD because they think it spends too much time, and even those guys prefer use unit testing, but the TDD approach they think is too much time expensive. And I want to know, have you faced some that kind of question with some guys or with some developer, and they have some experience or some experience in that case, if using TDD or not using TDD is the best approach, or it is up to every developer? What do you think about?
I think it's up to every developer, to each developer to implement their tests in the way they want. But in my opinion, TDD is a good technique because it makes you think in a more cohesive way. Because you start from the tests and you start by solving simple problem, and then you go incrementing more and more. So in my opinion, I think it's very useful, and even more with the IDEs we have nowadays. So for example, with IntelliJ, you can create a class. You write the name of your class on your test, and then you press Alt Enter, and then you can create the class right away. Your real class, the class that you're gonna test, in a very practical way. And if you want to create a method, you just put a dot method, and then you press Alt Enter again, and then you create your method, then you implement your method, and then you run your test, and then you see if it's working or not. So in my opinion, it's very practical. But I think, yeah, there is some reluctancy of some developers about not using TDD, and but it's a matter of discussing and reaching in a consensus and trying to convince them not by pressure, saying, "Oh, that's the right way to do that." No, because people don't like that. Instead, you have to suggest and you have to make them understand why it's better on that way. Um, but yeah, in my opinion, it's better to use TDD
Yes, I agree. But
because
if the
your code is just born tested. That's beautiful.
yes, and the if the guys don't want to use CDD, it's good to use it testing some way. I think it's
Yeah,
a good
they're
idea.
gonna test on their way, but in the meantime, we can try to um, influence them by showing that this is the best approach.
Yes,
And
I have
also, yeah,
another question. There are companies that use the tools to inspect the code and the code coverage. I see as a good tool to help measure the coverage of the tests. Maybe you have used some tool to measure test coverage, and but sometimes developer you only care about the coverage of the test, but they sometimes they fall in some of the mistakes you talk about. They even don't know the business rules, but they have to
exactly,
do the coverage, so they cover all the methods, and they don't know exactly what they are testing.
exactly.
I want to talk a little about that.
Well, this is a difficult topic to talk about, but it's true. Sometimes we are just generating numbers because we are using some tool to see all the numbers of the percentage of the coverage, the test coverage, and sometimes developers don't know the business requirements and they are just testing a code that was developed already. And I don't think it's very effective to test a code that was implemented already because you don't know the rules, the business rules. You're gonna test a number. You're gonna test probably a code that's very confusing, a code that has that crazy structure with a lot of ifs, a lot of fors, with while, with crazy stuff, really, really crazy stuff that no one understands. And if you're gonna create a test to this kind of code, just don't create it because it will be useless, completely useless. So sometimes just generating numbers worse than just leave it like it is. So instead of creating tests for those crazy code, refactor it, understand the business requirements, and generate uh, a better code, more specialized code instead of those crazy code that nobody understands. And you mentioned about a tool that would help with that, SonarQube. So SonarQube could um, be a good tool to help us to avoid those atrocities of having 100 lines in a method, uh, of having crazy nested for loopings with a lot of ifs, else, and so forth. Maybe SonarQube is not the solution to have a powerful code. Far from that, but it helps. At least those atrocities wouldn't be implemented.
Oh
But
yes, it's a good way. You can tell about
yeah,
some tools. There are other tools we use. I have used much time some time ago. I have used the find the bugs and the code C CPD, and there is some plugin for Eclipse I have used. Do you have some most common tools you use to help write better code?
So regarding those report tools and those covers tools, I just used SonarQube. So I wouldn't know how to answer you regarding the tool you used because I don't know this tool. But I think
use
their concept. Check style. You said.
Yes, check style.
Okay, check style is part of SonarQube. Okay, yeah, SonarQube. You could use PMD and check style. That's
yes,
exactly.
Some time ago, that was separate tools. I believe today SonarQube has already all that tools in one tool have all those functionalities. Maybe.
Yes, I think check style is a good tool. Along with PMD, it would avoid those things that I told you about not used variables, about unused imports, those things that would be really harmful, about returning a null value. We know that may cause a null pointer exception. So check style is very useful. I used it for a long time, but we just have to be careful with some rules, because if you don't think of the rules, if you just use the default rules that were there, it will make your life much more difficult, because you're going to have a lot of useless rules.
Yes, I agree. But it's great too. Great explanation. Thank you, Rafael.
Yeah, thank you.
Right. So if there's no other question, I got one. I'm gonna put you on the spot here.
That's fine.
So what's the hardest bug you had to fix?
So the hardest bug I had to fix was about cyclic dependency. So what happened was basically that in the project, the last project I was working for, they were creating entities. They were creating DTOs based on entities from the database. So we know that DTOs were supposed to be created based on the screen, based on the information that's supposed to go to the screen, and not based on a mirror of entities.
Yeah, it should reflect your domain and not your database model. Yeah.
Exactly. So the problem is that the DTOs were created in that way, and they had a relationship between each other. So, and they had cyclic cyclic dependencies between each other. So what was happening was that in every query, they were passing, for example, a simple example, customer table has an address, and then the customer table would have a list of addresses, and the the table would have a list of customers. Okay. And then when you make the query, one of each other would be passing the information all the time, and it would be infinite. Yeah. And it would have a cyclic dependency, and it would cause one of the worst exceptions from Java, that is Stack Overflow exception, Stack Overflow error. So it's an exception in an error level. So this is really, really, really serious. When you have an error exception in your software, on your project, it's very messed up. It's very completely messed up. And then I was working in a pair programming with other developers to find out what the fuck was happening. And we couldn't find out what was happening. We had to erase code to find out what was happening there, because there wasn't explanation, there wasn't log, there wasn't anything. We were trying to press a button in the screen, and suddenly the application just stopped, died all of the sudden. And there wasn't log, there wasn't anything. So what we had to do was to go into the controller. So the controller was really, really messy. Really, really messy. We had to go in a for looping, in a nested for looping, and we would have to check this DTO, what the fuck was happening. And then once we erased all the code, we finally found out the snippet of code that was causing the problem. And then once we inspected the object DTO, we saw that there was a Stack Overflow exception occurring inside this object, but the exception was suppressed in this DTO. It wasn't being thrown.
Yeah.
It wasn't being thrown. It was inside the DTO. So we had to inspect the object, and just the moment that we did that, we saw that there was a Stack Overflow exception there.
So not only there was a Stack Overflow error, which is one of the worst, but the exception or the error was swallowed. It was not made
exactly.
Wow.
It was swallowed, and so we just realized, man, this project is totally messed up. And then so the root cause of the problem of this was short deadlines. That's why I put it as the first mistake. It's the most serious mistake, because I saw developers working overtime every day to deliver things. They were generating numbers. For example, this error was in the controller class, and there was business code in the controller layer of the project. So can't have business code in the controller. Controller is supposed to be just the orchestrator, you know. So it was completely messed up. So they were having a sprint of 1 week to develop a really, really complex screen, a huge wizard with a lot of crazy business requirements. And the manager was thinking, oh, I'm generating the best result. I am the number creator. And then what happened? A lot of developers got stressed. They were really, really angry because they didn't have time for anything. And the code was a mess. So result, those developers that created this code had to work more than 1 month to refactor the whole project that they worked.
Wow.
And they were refactoring really messy code. They didn't have idea about what was happening. And this short deadline problem caused such an impact that the manager was fired. The leader of the team was fired. The other leader couldn't take this anymore. He just left the project. And more developers were fired because of that.
Hey.
And we had a really bad time to work on that messy code. So it's not worth to think on numbers. So
Yeah.
we just have to make it clear and do our best to avoid those kind of problems. If we have to, I don't know, do whatever it takes to avoid it. And it caused impact for more than 1 month. So after the refactoring, they couldn't solve all the problems. The code was still messy. And still, we had problems for 2 years long because of those short period that they were working in a fast way. So it's just illusion.
Yeah. So they were shooting themselves in the foot by just wanting to implement shortcuts to get stuff done in time. They jeopardized the whole project. Wow.
Yeah. So
Wow. Well, so there's a lesson here. Don't sacrifice.
yeah,
They
don't
are
try to be the smart ass.
Yeah. All right. So anybody else has any question before we wrap things up? I think we're good. All right. So thank you again, Raphael. That was great. Just before we conclude, just a reminder, like Raphael, he's helping Java developer to use best programming practice to code quality software and stress-free project. He's running a blog called nobugsproject.com. So go take a look. Very interesting content there. So we're gonna wrap it up if nobody else has any question. So that's pretty much it for now. So stay tuned for the next episode and see you.
That's it. Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure to be with you. See you.
Bye, everyone.
Well, great presentation.